Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for coming to this very important meeting of the City Council as we do the people's work. At this time, would you please stand for the invocation, which will be given by Councilman Dr. Curtis Edmonds, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Edmonds.
Gracious God, our Father, we're grateful for another day. Thank you for reasonable portions of health and strength. God, generate our minds that we might have vibrant discussion and feedback and dialogue. We pray to Heavenly Father that you be with us as we be about the work of this wonderful metropolis of Portsmouth. We give you praise and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members of City Council, please indicate your presence electronically.
7 members of City Council are present.
Okay. Members of City Council, you have before your consideration the minutes of a call meeting of May the 12th, 2014, a call meeting of May 13th, 2014, and a regular meeting of May 13th, 2014. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Move adoption.
Second.
Okay.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. The minutes are adopted 7-0.
Okay, very good. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. 14-197, presentations. Presentation of proclamations for the 100th anniversary of the Portsmouth Public Library and the 40th anniversary of the Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library. If the representatives of the Friends of the Library and the members and staff of the Portsmouth Public Library would please come forward and join the mayor at the Sergeant at Arms desk, please.
Test is on.
It's 2 seconds.
Okay, well, my. Come on over. Yeah, we want to get all of this on television. Yes. Okay. All right, it is, come on in. This is, you know what? This is indeed an honor and a pleasure to be able to present this proclamation. Mr. Director, Mr. Passion for people and passion for learning and willing to want to make sure everyone that come in those doors of our libraries clearly are served and are helped, and no one displays that better than you, Todd. And that's good. I mean, because again, we like to say Portsmouth is for people, and you guys in the library, I get all kinds of compliments about what you do and how you do it, and for you and this board and what you do for all of our people is just tremendous. So it is my honor to, and I even use you in our State of the City. We do a little bragging with the other cities, and our other cities are celebrating their 50th anniversary of existence. And I told them, we've got a library that's getting ready to turn 100 years old, right? So we've got shoes in our city older than some of those cities. So, and I think we had Krasnoff in attendance, so that was a nice gotcha for me. But this proclamation reads as follows. Whereas in 2014, the City of Portsmouth will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Portsmouth Public Library, which was started by the Portsmouth Students Club on a small portion of the courthouse grounds on December the 1st, 1914, with Esther Wilson as librarian. And whereas in 1945, the Portsmouth Community Colored Library was established, and later in 1960, U.S. District Court Judge Walter E. Hoffman ruled the Portsmouth Public Library must allow African Americans. The city of Portsmouth secured the former post office building to be remodeled as the city's public library, and in May of 1963, that's when I was born, by the way. In May of 1963, Mayor R. Irvin Smith dedicated the integrated Portsmouth Library to the public. And whereas throughout the years, Portsmouth has opened 3 new branches, the Craddock Branch Library in 1964, the Manor Branch Library in 1972, and the Churchland Branch Library in 2009. And whereas no accomplishments are achieved without setbacks, and in 1977, the Portsmouth Main Library celebrated the new $160,000 mezzanine before enduring 2 separate fires in 1998 and another on Christmas Day in 2010. And whereas the Portsmouth Public Library has flourished from the contributions of amazing directors such as Dean Burgess, Susan Burton, and Todd Elliott. Well, our directors, are they all here? Stand out. Come here. Come on over here, director. And where is Dean's not here? Okay. We're on television. We won't say Dean didn't come. Okay. Dean's tied up. Alongside an abundance of staff members and volunteers over the years. And whereas with the addition of the history room, children's department, storytelling room, teen scene, and public computers with internet, the Portsmouth family is truly grateful for all of these exceptional attributes and the library has provided to our historic community over the past 100 years. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth I. Wright, the mayor of the city of Portsmouth, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2014 as Portsmouth Public Library 100th Anniversary Month in the great city of Portsmouth and encourage our citizens to visit and utilize the many contributions and services provided by the Portsmouth Public Library to our historic community. And witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Portsmouth, Virginia, to be affixed to this 27th day of May, 2014, signed Kenneth I. Wright, Mayor. Congratulations. How about let's give him a hand? Congratulations. It is. Now, I've got another proclamation I'm going to present to the Friends, but we can't do that until we get a few comments from you and Boss Lady here.
Ladies first.
Of course, thank you very much. We are working to make this year a special year for the Portsmouth Public Library. I do happen to be on the committee, and of course, everything is being overseen by Mr. Elliott. And we welcome you to come visit us, and thank you so much.
Couldn't do it without the staff, the board, the Friends, volunteers. They make it happen, and of course, all of our Portsmouth Public Library card holders, over 60,000 of you. You know who you are. Thank you. And for the other 30-odd thousand, come in and get a card.
All right, very good. Now to the Friends of the Library. Come on over. Oh, do we have them all on television? Mm-hmm. Can we get them? Okay, we're good. All right, come on, Friends. "40 years. That's a long time to be friends. That's a whole lot of friendship. This proclamation reads as follows: whereas the year 2014 marks the 40th anniversary of the Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library, Incorporated, with the charter meeting being held on December the 1st, 1974, by founder Dr. Robert Adams. And whereas the mission of the Friends is to maintain an association of persons interested in libraries, focus public attention on the library, stimulate the use of the library's resources and services, receive and encourage gifts, endowments, and requests to the library, support and cooperate with the library in developing services and facilities for the community, and to support the freedom to read as expressed in the American Library Association's Bill of Rights. And whereas the Friends raised $568,287 to furnish the public areas of the new Churchland Branch Library, and whereas since 2006, the Friends raised $95,000 through monthly book sales and donated the monies to the Portsmouth Public Library Foundation to spend on unbudgeted items for the library. And whereas the Friends raised $129,412 for copiers, maintenance, and paper for all library branches, and spent $14,000 in 2014 to replace the 1973 carpet in the Manor Branch Library. And whereas, boy, you got some great friends, I gotta tell you. And whereas the work of the Friends highlights the fact that our library is the cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning. And whereas the Portsmouth family recognizes the outstanding contributions of this volunteer organization and thanks the Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library Incorporated for their generosity to our historic community and for their commitment to lifelong learning. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth I. Wright, the mayor of the city of Portsmouth, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2014 as Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library Incorporated 40th anniversary month in the city of Portsmouth, and encourage our citizens to be cognizant of the many contributions and services provided by this volunteer group for our historic community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Portsmouth, Virginia, to be affixed at this 27th day of May, 2014, signed Kenneth I. Wright, Mayor. Congratulations on 40 years. Thank you. You're a librarian, just close enough. Now, a spokesperson here. Yes, ma'am.
That would be me.
That would be you. What a friend.
What a friend. Yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeannie Larkham. I have been president of the Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library since, dark 30, or I don't know, 2001 or 2. At any rate, it's a wonderful organization. I do appreciate Mayor Wright and City Council's opportunity to come before you this evening and be recognized for our 40 years. It's a total volunteer organization. I have with me most of my board members tonight. Edie Carmichael is secretary. Rosemary Rakowski is in charge of our bulk mailings. Wanda Russo is a phenomenal volunteer and library board member and past president. Carol Hines is in charge of our book sale volunteers. Glenn Tinsley is in charge of the Book Nook. Sue Burton is a volunteer with us. My husband, John Larkham, just does what needs to be done. And Wayne Davis and his wife, Jan, who could not be here this evening, are in charge of picking up our book donations. And that's what we depend on, is book donations. So we have someone who'll come and pick up your books. If you're tired of looking at them, give us a call and we will come and pick them up. Again, thanks everyone. Thanks all of our volunteers for 40 years. It's been all volunteers, and we appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank y'all very much. Now, as they take their seats at this time, we've got two separate organizations we want to ask to step up briefly so we can recognize them and thank them for the great work that they've done throughout the years, but in particular this weekend was our Memorial Day weekend, and we had quite the celebration in the city of Portsmouth, as we always do. It started out Friday afternoon with our opening ceremony for the 24th annual Umoja Festival, and we'll start with that group first. Can I get the Church and Community Action folks, if you would please come up and join me? And as they make their way up, let's give them a hand for all of the great things that Church and Community in Action does with our city and within our city to help all of our citizens. And Pastor Green here is the president. And I just want to, Mr. President, thank you and the organization for a job well done. This event has grown over the years. And we moved this, I think, about 3 years ago to the Memorial Day weekend. And I mentioned that the other night at the ceremony. It was probably, Mr. Pace, the best decision we've ever made. We capitalized on some things that fell apart over in Norfolk, the Airfram Festival. We also moved out of a danger zone from the weather. I think we had several years prior to that of rain and sporadic attendance because of the weather. And so moving that to the Memorial Day weekend has helped. But your work and what you've done to help with the city of Portsmouth and all of our staff people. But I want to recognize, where's Margaret Thorne? Is she there? Stand up, Miss Thorne. Come up here and join us, Margaret. Absolutely. Our city and our employees do an outstanding job, and they know I know because I'm there, the whole time, right? Okay. And just to share with you, I have a photo. I haven't put it on Facebook yet, okay? When we ended, I think, Saturday night, I think we were right at about 11 o'clock. At 11:01, there were about 10 of our employees out picking up trash. We had the largest crowd Saturday night than we've ever had here in the city. And the place, absolutely. And the place was a mess. By 11:24, in about 24 minutes, it was spotless. They had cleaned it all up, and we were ready for Sunday for our Gospel Fest. So, Pastor, I want to ask you if you just give us a few words about Church and Community Action and your relationship here with the city. We value that so much because, as we always say, these things happen with volunteers and people that care about the community. And we appreciate your leadership and all of what you guys do to make this possible, and with our staff. With that, sir.
Well, my name is Michael D. Green. I am pastor of Rock Center Church, and it has been our privilege to serve the city over the last 24 years. It'll be 25 years next year, putting together the manual. One of the things we try to do is make sure that the word is out concerning the Umoja booklet. And I can't take all the credit because I got to say Miss Elaine Breathwaite really spearheads the drive to make sure that the booklet is done. And along with many of our board members, they really go out and they beat the pavement to make sure that our city businesses are aware, the churches are aware, and all the community is aware. So our focus is basically community, connecting the community to faith-based churches that are really moving things along in our community with our children especially. And so that's what we're really looking forward to for the years to come. And it's our pleasure to serve the city as well as all of you.
Thank you. Another round of applause. Thank y'all very much. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Yes, you get a hug too. All right. Now you got to stay up here. No, ma'am. No. We're not done. Because the next group we're going to come up and recognize also, you're the city, by the way, tonight. Okay. John, is it okay? She's the city? Okay, you're the city. Okay. Now, the next group we want to call up is our Military Affairs Committee, which, would y'all please join me up here? And as they come, let's give them a round of applause. because yesterday we celebrated the 130th Memorial Day Parade in the city of Portsmouth, which is the longest continuous running parade in the country. Right here, and if you saw the news clip, I think Channel 13, Mike Gooding, he was very emphatic about it's not in Boston, it's not in Lexington, and he named it's in Portsmouth, Virginia. And he talked about the significance of our city, and I was interviewed, and several of our veterans were interviewed. It was a real nice piece. But the significance of that is, once again, that is done in conjunction with our city. But the volunteers of this commission and this committee and what they do throughout the course of the year to make this a success is just immeasurable. We can't put a price on what our volunteers do and the relationship that they have formed and created with our military partners. And we are very proud of our relationship as a Coast Guard city. We have Coast Guard representation. Our president in here tonight, Irv, is he still in Texas?
He is in O'Hare Airport, stuck there by various...
Irv is stuck in the airport. He wanted to be here tonight, the president, and our vice chair is actually Commander Parker's, Tracy Parker, and the commander and... Yep, they're on their way to the West Coast. I went to the retirement ceremony where most of our committee was last week, and the commander had a long response, and he went to thanking a whole lot of people, but the first on his list was the city of Portsmouth, myself, and the committee with their relationship. And it is about those relationships. And so we've had a banner year this year. We're looking forward to more of that through our Mayor's Military Affairs Committee, because we just had a change of command over at the Naval Medical Center. So we've got a new admiral there. We just had a change of command at the 5th District as well as the Atlantic District for the Coast Guard. And so let's hope we can cultivate those relationships with those leaders and continue that. So with that, do we have a spokesperson, Terry? Okay. Terry, you get
The biggest mouth, yes. Irv apologizes for not being here tonight. Unfortunately, O'Hare would not put him on the presidential plane, so he's stuck. I would like to say that our committee has about 25 members, 35 members, depending upon who shows up at 8:30 in the morning. And most of the people involved in this event, from the staff through the committee members, have worked very hard on this event and really love to have it here. And I have to say that this is the velvet voice of the Naval Shipyard who gave us the Vietnam Memorial Ceremony and who did an absolutely splendid job. And this is CMC Brian Collier is an invaluable member of our committee, and we would love to keep him longer than the Navy will let him stay, but we hope they let him stay at least a little bit longer. Okay. And Steve Milner, who has been a Portsmouth fan and advocate for years and is about 20 years retired from the Naval Shipyard, also has been just wonderful. He handles the VIP stand for us this year, and it was great. So thank you all, and next year.
Thank you. That's right. Yes, sir.
Mayor, just on behalf of the shipyard commander, our partners over at the Naval Hospital, our partners with the Coast Guard in this city, it's about service to the community, about service to the nation, and look forward to continuing good things, whether it's with the school, whether it's the partnership for these events or all the other events that take place throughout the year. It's an honor to represent the community.
Thank you. All right, another round of applause. Thank you all very much. Now, finally, there was a reason why I didn't ask you to say anything, because I want you to speak on both of those briefly, because our city has done an outstanding job with all of our departments, from marketing to you name it. And so with you being the official spokesperson tonight as the city, would you like to say a few words, Margaret, or as we call her, Riri, but okay.
No, you didn't.
Please.
I don't think I have a choice. As the mayor said, yes, this is really a team effort. That committee is made up of departments, police department, behavior health care, fire department, marketing, as he mentioned, Parks and Recreation, we have volunteers, we have a nursing unit, we have youth volunteers. This year we did something different. We used kids from the school, and they were all wearing their school colors, and they walked around just, welcoming people as they came in. So this is definitely a team effort. Parks and Recreation does oversee it, and we had a great time. And we were so pleased because that was the first time we had that many people since I've been working for the city. So it was a great weekend, and the parade was my first adventure as well, and it was great. I had a great time. I am a celebrity because I had Bernadette Stannis in my car. People want to ride in my car just because she sat there. But anyway, we had a great time, and we will hope that you guys had a great time, and we're looking for 25th year to be even better. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Very good. And now, finally, before I take my seat, and I know you're wondering when's he going to sit down, I want to ask Mr. Joe Wright, our Master of Ceremony for the parade, to please come up, and we want to thank him officially. When I first called Mr. Wright and asked him would he be our Master of Ceremony, and I think I posed it as, I'm looking for someone that could probably do this. Now, we've had General Short. We've had several folks. I think the first person we asked was Dr. Edmonds, who did a banged-up job, and so I didn't want to put any pressure on Mr. Wright here. But and then I finally told him, I said, Joe, you're the guy. We need you. I mean, you're an Army guy. You're a passion for Portsmouth. He's affectionately known as the mayor of Cavalier Manor. And before I could get off the phone, I think his wife, Miss Betty, said, yes, we'll do it. And so they operate as a team and always have operated as a team. So I want to thank you, sir. You did a fine job. Now, he's used to sitting on the other side of High Street in the viewing stand that we have reserved for our veterans. And so I asked all of the veterans to give you a score. And after the parade, I went over to talk to them. And each one of them, it was an A+. It was an A+. How about a hand? That's right. So, again, on behalf of the city, I want to thank you for your leadership and what you do within our communities, but you did a great job yesterday, and I want you to say a few words before we take our seat.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It just so happens I have a little list because, when you forget somebody to help you, and everybody wanted to help me, but I have just a few names that I'd like to call off, and I made a list of them, starting with the mayor that helped me very much. Irv London and Peter Youngblood, Valora Basketville, Terry Danaher, Steve Milner, LaVoice Pace, Councilwoman Elizabeth Simmons, Nita Joseph, in fact, the entire committee, and to end it all was my bride of 57 years, Betty Wright.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, appreciate it. All right. Okay, that was well done. And as I promised, this is a budget meeting night, so for all of you that came to be recognized on the request of the mayor, you can excuse yourself if you like, and we'll get on with the meeting. But again, thank you all for coming, and thank you for your volunteering and your service for our city. Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your remarks at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments. Unfinished business. 14-181, use permits. Item A, resolution granting the request of Teresa Cox Ford for a use permit for a family child care center child care home at 603 Hanson Avenue for 12 children aged 1 to 4 years. The property is zoned urban residential. Vision principles, lifelong learning community, neighborhoods, and sense of community. UP 1404, first reading vote 6-0, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay.
This item is adopted 7-0. Item B, resolution granting the request of Tanya Sprawling for a use permit for a family child care day home. Okay. At 703 Hancock Avenue for 12 children from infancy to 5 years. The property is zoned urban residential. Vision principles, lifelong learning community, neighborhoods, and sense of community. UP 1405, first reading vote 6-0, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move adoption.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Item C, resolution granting the request of Charles J. Bodner with Hargard & Ure Associates for a use permit to operate an assisted living facility with 20 beds in an existing building located at 3301 Armistead Drive that was formerly occupied by a nursing home. The property is currently zoned urban residential UR. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. UP 1406, first reading vote, 6-0, electronic roll call, and I have Mr. Rayford Ure available if there's questions.
Okay.
Move adoption.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Very good. How you doing, Ray?
This item is adopted 7-0. Item E, resolution granting the request of Sharon Howell, agent for the Whitmore Company, for a use permit to construct a multifamily apartment building containing approximately 46 residential units that exceeds the allowable density in the downtown D1 T4 subdistrict. The property contains .87 acres and is located in the northwest corner of the intersection of Washington Street and County Street at 600 Washington Street. Vision principle, neighborhoods, and sense of community. UP 1408, first reading vote 6-0, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move adoption.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Hit that. Yeah.
Okay. This item is adopted 7-0.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of council, I move that we add an agenda item to our agenda tonight.
Second.
Okay.
Sure. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically to add an item to your agenda.
Very good.
This item has been adopted 6-1.
Okay. Mr. Cherry.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I move approval of the following ordinance. An ordinance to appropriate the additional sum of $6.4 million in the FY 2014-2015 Education Fund. That it hereby appropriates the additional $6.4 million in instruction classification of the 2014-2015 Education Fund. That the source of the one-time appropriation shall be the undesignated fund balance. That the appropriation shall be used to ensure that Portsmouth Public Schools has sufficient funds for their programs and personnel that it has identified as subject to possible elimination, to include the Port Town Magic, First College textbooks, summer school, class size, early up teaching assistants, New Directions, Project Uplift, Starbase, program specialists, and Science and Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Pathways STEM program. The estimated revenues in the FY 2014-15 Education Fund and the city's 2014-15 operation budget are increased by $6.4 million. All unspent unappropriations under this ordinance shall lapse at the end of the fiscal year as prescribed in Section 22.1-100 of the Code of Virginia. Funds encumbered but unpaid by the end of the fiscal year will be deemed unspent appropriations that will be required to be reappropriated by the City Council. This ordinance shall take effect on July 1st, 2014, and adopted by the Portsmouth City Council at its meeting held on 27 May 2014.
Second.
Ms. Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a few comments about this particular ordinance. Since I came to this city council in 2004, I, along with every member of council I've ever served with, have moved heaven and earth to provide adequate funding to the Portsmouth Public Schools with every available resource the taxpayers of this city have had to offer, to raise the quality of our schools, to increase teacher pay, to attract and to retain the best teachers, to rid the system of mobile classrooms, to provide the best physical plants and technology, basically to provide our children with every possible resource we could afford. However, I have come to accept a cold, hard fact in that all the City Council can do is write a check and pray that the money we allocate is spent as requested by the superintendent. As we've seen far too often in the past few years, we've been frustrated by any number of financial shell games and accounting gimmicks, and even the use of our students as a public relations tool to this council. Nothing less than a grand jury has reminded us that those in charge of the education of our children have broken laws in handling resources, and very little has changed since the grand jury completed its investigation over 2 years ago. Every public need in this city finds its way to this city council. All of the funding falls on these 7 shoulders. You can fuss about the school board all you want, but they can only spend what the city council allocates. We have to make choices and we have to set priorities to distribute a very limited tax-based resource to address many, many competing needs: public safety, roads, waste management, public utilities, flooding, employee salaries, retirement benefits, the list goes on and on and on. And schools have always ranked at the top of these priorities. We've heard it all before, again and again. Just last year, at the urgent request of our current superintendent, we went back to the well and gave the school system an additional $1.3 million, expressly for the purpose of adding new teachers, which we were all passionate about. Just recently, we learned not one teacher was hired. We were told that federal funding was cut due to sequestration, but the school's financial statement doesn't show that. We also learned this year that during last year's budget, the school system asked this council to fund roof repairs for Norcom High School and Churchland Primary, $1.8 million, which we happily funded, only to find out later the repairs had already been done and already been paid for before we ever voted on that budget. How many times can we spend these resources to demonstrate our support for the school system and our children and have nothing to show for it? The hardest job facing any member on this council is to know when to say no. The community always has and likely always will have more needs than resources, and there's little margin for error in our budget appropriation. With every new budget comes the threat of a tax increase. Today's proposal is no different. If we allocate another $6.4 million to the schools, that equates to nearly 8 cents on our personal property tax rate. That affects us all, particularly our seniors and our working families. of which most all of us in this room are. I won't vote tonight to increase the burden on all of us, and I hope my colleagues won't either. Finally, there is this. We know that the school board is about to hire a new superintendent. She, or he, will bring their own perspective to our school system and their own set of priorities. I hope that this new leader will see fit to eliminate some of the bloated ranks of highly paid administrators and put more dollars in the classroom. I believe we should wait till we know what a new superintendent wants and needs before we spend this money. With a need to raise property taxes or reduce our fund balance, which can surely lead to a downgrading of our fine credit rating. We're all in this together. We all want our children to have the best accessibility and the best chance at an excellent education. But this is not the way, and this is not the time to make this decision. When I vote no to this proposal, it's not because I don't support our kids. It's because I believe it's the best way to give our children the best education we could afford and at the same time protect our working families and our senior citizens. We need to wait for new leadership to come to the schools, to get up to speed and to identify what their demand is for more money. I respectfully urge my colleagues to join me in deferring this decision until that time.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. It has been moved and properly seconded that we approve an ordinance to appropriate the additional sum of $6.4 million in the FY 14-15 Education Fund. Is there any other unreadiness? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, this was not a printed item on your agenda. It has been an added item. City Council will at this time hear any speakers that would like to come forward. Please give your name and address, and you will have up to 5 minutes to speak on this item that has been added, which is an ordinance to appropriate an additional sum of $6.4 million in the FY 2014-15 Education Fund.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I appreciate Ms. Simmons's statement. I think it's important that issues of public policy be clearly enunciated in public forums, and she has certainly laid out one side of this particular argument. I'm sure she speaks for a number of people. I don't agree with all of her statements. One of the statements with which I take issue is that this is going to increase the property tax burden for the citizenry. The school system returned to the city since the close of the last fiscal year funds well in excess of what is contemplated to be appropriated tonight. Additionally, the city manager's budget message to this council in this chamber referenced those funds as funds that were potentially to be returned to the school system. Now, I agree there is a lot of clarifying that is in order in terms of what has and what hasn't been spent by the school board over the last fiscal year and during the current fiscal year. But there appears to be an imminent crisis with the pending departure of the superintendent, with the termination of the school's budget director. So there's a degree of disarray right now within the school system. And I think having this fiscal safety net in place to ensure that programs that are important for the continued success of the students and the success of the schools warrants doing this. The one fallback you have is the proviso that these funds would return at the end of that fiscal year, that portion which is unspent. At the same time, there should be careful scrutiny of what is going in and coming out on the school board side. I want to reiterate, though, something that I've said many times in the past. When the Commonwealth allowed for elected school boards, it erred in not providing them their own pot of money. And I would urge you, in your packet, in consultation with your colleagues on the school board, your legislative packet to the General Assembly, that you start the process for providing that funding so that the city funds and the school funds will be separate pots of money, and the elected school board will be responsible for handling their own funds. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Good evening,
Good evening, Ms. Shea.
Mayor Wright, members of council. I come to you tonight. I had planned to speak on the budget in general, but since this surprise element has been presented, well, I have not introduced myself.
Yes, please.
I'm Jean Shackelford. I live at 2437 Sterling Point Drive. I have been a citizen of this city for almost 64 years, and during those years, I have been very involved with the educational process. As a teacher, as an administrator, as a school board member, as a legislative liaison, trying to get money for our schools from the state. I want to say that I think this $6.4 million that is before you is an important element to add to the budget that you are going to be voting on this evening as well. I will not be speaking at the later time, so when you come to my name on the card, you can skip over that. I come here because I care about the students in this city. I care about the teachers and the administrators and the jobs that they do. I think I know from where I speak when I say that the things that are to be funded by this $6.4 million will put our school system on the right, will keep our school system on the right track. You know, when a superintendent comes in at the beginning of his tenure, he is going to be looking at what we are doing and deciding if that is the way that he wants to go. But in the meantime, we don't have that person. And we are going to begin school in September, and these programs need to go forth that are presented to you in this resolution. I hope you will vote for this and very carefully consider the entire budget that the schools have presented to you, because it is a means of making Portsmouth as a city one of high quality. As are the schools, so is the city. I hope you will remember this. Thank you for my opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Ms. Shackelford. Let me just say, as you take your seat, thank you for your service and all of your passion for our kids in education. I remember as an elementary student at Shaters Elementary School that when you came, we had to sing for Miss Shackelford, and as you approached, I was tuning up to sing for you to make sure. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night, ma'am.
Good evening again. I'm Terry Danaher, 413 Dinwiddie Street. I have got to say sort of what she said. I support the schools. I believe very strongly in education, having homeschooled my children, because after starting them in Europe, after they did their Montessori time, I moved to Virginia and found out that there was something called SOLs. And I thought, how could anybody name something SOLs and be serious? Seriously. So at that point, I started doing some research and decided that having written standardized tests myself and known that they are not the best way to test students, that I was not going to put my children in a system in this state. So I'm coming at this from a sort of different view. And I'm looking at the school system, not just here in Portsmouth, but in the state of Virginia, and thinking about the reforms that are necessary to the whole thing. I'm also here as the person who established a PAC called Citizens for Accountability in Politics. And I am looking at this whole circus of we're not going to spend the money, we're going to spend the money, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. The court stuff that went on, where our superintendent was obviously, how did he put it? They had some habits they had gotten into, and they hadn't fixed them over the last year. And yet, we're talking about handing over more money. I think that a new superintendent will probably do a good job. I think actually Dr. Stuckwich did some very good things here. But accountability was not amongst the things that he was doing lately anyway. And I'm very disturbed at this kind of circus that is going on, with all of a sudden coming in and saying, we need to spend this money, and then no, and yes, and no, and yes. And it gives fodder to the newspapers. It does not speak to a real sense of accountability on the school board, for sure, because they should have, as far as I'm concerned, taken their superintendent aside a year ago and said, we're going to look at the books every week and we want to know what's going on. And it also creates amongst you all a sort of sense of, well, you are ultimately responsible for the budget. You need to be responsible for the budget and not get jerked around. So I'm really, as a citizen in the city who pays taxes, and I do not begrudge a raise in my taxes to pay for a good education. I didn't begrudge my time to spend all of it with my children to get their education sorted out, and they all went on to good colleges, and they've all done very well. But so I wasn't a complete failure, but you know, really, it is about accountability, and it is about watching where the money is going, and I really appreciate what Councilwoman Simmons has said tonight. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Terry.
I'm back. I'm Bill Hayden. I live at 841 Five Points Road in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I spent too much time 2 weeks ago trying to explain my position on Starbase. The good clerk showed me where the lights are, so now and tonight I will make my 5-minute time frame. I'm not used to being shut off. And I thank you all for your questions after I was shut off to give me an opportunity to talk. And I'm back again because the 2 points that I intended to make 2 weeks ago are that when I was in the Navy and moving 25 times, the first thing that my wife and I looked at when we came to a new community was the school system. We had 2 boys, and they were our most important product. I submit that you've got some 12,000 kids that are your most important product. And any new business, any new family is going to look at your school system. And the school system will be providing the future workforce. The point that I want to make to the cameras, as a matter of fact, and this addendum to the budget does it quite well, is that you actually, Portsmouth has the best STEM program in the region, probably the state, perhaps even the country. If you didn't realize that, well, then shame on me, frankly, for not making that point to you. You have a program that starts in elementary school with every fourth grader, every fifth grader, every sixth grader launches their rocket. It interests them in science, and it fascinates them to discover things. The rest of the school systems around here and around the state focus on magnet programs or after-school clubs. Those programs are very nice for nurturing the quality of their STEM products, but they do absolutely nothing for the quantity of their STEM students. What you have here in Portsmouth is a program from STEM to Stern, Navy term, sorry, I had to put that in there, that captures the imagination. Not every child is going to be a scientist or an engineer. I didn't just fall off a turnip truck, I know that. But we catch a handful, perhaps 100, maybe even 1,000 that would never have considered going into science and math because they're too hard. They're not too hard. They're interesting. They're fascinating. They're part of your life. And today, if you cannot do, I'm watching the clock, Deborah, if you cannot do math, if you cannot understand a little bit about the scientific process, and if you cannot do computers, you are not competitive. So, with just a minute and a half to go, I want to tell you that you're going, in my view, and with all due respect, Councilwoman Simmons, you're going down the right path here. You're in re-engaging programs. Starbase will go away. It will dry up and go away if it's not supported this year. It will never come back. It just won't. So I think you're doing the right thing by taking a leap of faith. I don't understand all of the nuances associated with the concerns you have. I'm from that foreign country, Virginia Beach. But I do know that you've got the best program in the region here, and you need to support it. And I suspect that all of those other programs associated with this $6-odd million are part of the whole process that you need to invest in your children. So I salute it, and I certainly hope that you vote for it. The kids are the future. Help them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I yield my time.
Thank you, Admiral. We appreciate your service. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your service, Admiral Hayden. Actually, I don't have a question for you. Just going to make a statement on the budget. But
Okay. All right, Ms. Randall's got a question for you.
Oh, okay.
All right, Ms. Randall.
Before you leave, first of all, I commend you on the efforts and things that have been placed into the educational programs coming from the schools when many of these programs were never even thought of in terms of a curriculum for young children to be fantasizing about when they looked at space studies. But it has become a reality in the classrooms of those children who's been exposed to it. It is a program that not only has received recognition here, we were behind the 8 ball in bringing it through because other cities had already launched some of their little rockets that they were trying to do. But you put it at the peak, and all of these children are fascinated by it. Children should not be punished or penalized because of some of the shortfalls that as adults who are overseeing the programs did not have the foresightedness to see what could happen. I think we should expand the minds of our children as far as we can send them so that they can soar in the future and not be so penny-wise that we forget that these may be the people who will support transportation from planet to planet. We may not see it, but in their eyes, they visualize the future, and we are still grounded. I think we should continue to push programs like the STEM program and see that these children have these opportunities. I'm never for anything that will stagnate the minds of young people to reach their full potentials. And I will not go along with anything that's going to stagnate the learning processes for our young people in the city of Portsmouth. If we have to cut someplace else, we can do it, but not for our young people who are indeed the future of this city.
Very good.
And all the people said amen.
Amen. That's right. Admiral, thank you. And as you take your seat, I'll just remind everyone of that slogan we have at Starbase, that we're launching futures, one child at a time.
10,000 of them, Mayor, so far.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, this process is certainly not a circus. I think any elected body listens to the needs of the people, and they react accordingly. During the budget process, every year we hear from a lot of people expressing needs. Some of those needs we can fulfill, some we cannot. This year we heard from many teachers, many school administrators, and quite a few school kids. And all of them were basically saying the same thing. The tools that they use in the classrooms in many cases weren't there. We heard of outdated computers. We heard of teachers having to purchase supplies, just a madre of things that needed to be addressed. Now, it's easy to say, and I've said it myself, why did you return money to this body if you have all those needs? I'm going to leave that up to the new superintendent to get his arms or her arms around. We can debate that issue, you know, to next year at this time. In the meantime, our kids, we've got, I think, approximately 13 or 14,000 kids in our schools. We cannot have those kids not have the tools that will have a negative impact on their future. As Admiral Hayden said, yeah, not every kid is going to be a scientist or a mathematician, but if launching that rocket just piques the curiosity of one child to do something better than they would have otherwise, well, I think that investment is a wise one. With that said, I agree with a lot of what my colleague said, and that's been stated many times, and I do know that she's very supportive of the children, and as everybody up here is. But we have a duty to fulfill, and we're going to fulfill that duty in an unorthodox manner tonight. I've stated that earlier. You know, it's not every day we use money from the fund balance, and in doing that, the real estate tax rate is not being increased. In fact, the manager shared with us that our fund balance, even after this appropriation, will still be $2.5 million above this council's policy. So there is no real estate tax increase associated with this. What is associated with it is assuring that our kids' future will be brighter come July the 1st than it would have otherwise if we did not take this action. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or speakers? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Contrell Devon. I reside at 515 Water Lily. I live in Newport. I have been an advocate for the schools. I still am. And before you take this vote, I want to say thank you, because it has been a process. It has been some very, very bumpy roads, some heated days. However, at the end of the day, the children and the teachers are still our most important assets in this city. So with everything that was said, and Councilwoman Randall, you know I respect you greatly, but at the same time, moving forward, I feel like even a new superintendent need to know that they have the support of this body. If more is needed once they come in and find out exactly what's needed, I think communication will be key and important going forward. We do not want to take stress into a new year or place that stress on the back of a new superintendent coming in. And also, we have to consider the morale of our schools. A lot of teachers was placed under distress through this process. It was an ugly process. And whenever a teacher is under distress, that puts distress in the classroom. So morale is important, and I thank you for taking this leap of faith. I thank you for going against a lot of odds tonight. Thank you, Councilman Cherry, Vice Mayor Cherry. And I believe the rest of you all will get behind him, including you, Councilman Danny Meeks, hopefully. Anyway, Ms. Miss Elizabeth, as time go on before this vote takes place, maybe there will be something in you that might have a 50-50 decision to say, let's consider the morale. You have record, and I do not believe going forward we will have those problems again. I definitely do not believe so. So hopefully, again, we can do this going forward. Thank you, Mr. Rowe, for working with the council, considering the importance of our education, our teachers, the students, and the morale. We all know that it's harder to start pedaling on a bike, even when you slow down. So let's keep this bike going and just keep a watchful eye over it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devon.
Good evening, Council. I, too, was on the agenda for later, so you can scratch my name off. I'm Sarah Hines. I reside at 207 Leonard Road. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being at the school board meeting the other night. It was nice to see a face there to hear the discussion that we've had. As a teacher for 10 years in the city of Portsmouth, as a teacher specialist, I was really upset when the teacher specialist came up, because I do know what those people bring to the classroom, what I brought to the classroom, and to have them and the children cut off from that service, it broke my heart. So I have been following this very closely. I would not be a teacher if I did not reflect on what we have learned. I follow what my previous speaker talked about, that we do have changes coming, Ms. Simmons. We have a new superintendent coming. We have in the school system basically a new financial branch that will bring fresh eyes at the new budget. We have a superintendent now who has asked us, as his responsibility by state code, for a sound budget for fiscal year 15. That is what he has asked for. We do not want to put our incoming superintendent in a lurch to come into a firestorm and have to put out fires already on day one. Let him uncover his own firestorms as he goes through this. We do not need that added pressure. Our teachers at this moment are in the middle of SOL testing. They do not need extra stress by looking for another job, because they cannot trust the two bodies that govern them. We need to be reflective as a whole. The school board has learned. You guys hopefully have learned some lessons. There needs to be better communication. We understand that there needs to be better accountability on both sides. We all have learned lessons. Let's set the school board up for success going into our look for a new superintendent. That's all I wanted to say, and I still have 3 minutes left.
Thank you for your comment. And
Thank
let me
you.
just say, I really appreciate the way you laid that out in your presentation there. But you're absolutely right. This is a new day in how we move forward. And I have shared with council that I personally have talked with every member of that school board about us moving forward. And I think most of my colleagues have.
Yes.
And this is a new day for us, a new beginning as we go forward, and how we do the categorical funding and how we're going to measure the budget and these metrics as we go forward. And I believe wholeheartedly in each one of them and their commitment and their job to make sure that you can do your job. And I believe in all of us up here. So it's a new day. It's not faith. I believe in it. And I believe we're going to all get it done because, again, our kids and you are the most valuable assets we have in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, City Council, my name is Raymond Willis Jr. I am on the Portsmouth Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I am here in reference to my colleagues to support the added funds. We had a meeting a few weeks ago with Starbase, heartfelt meeting. We're very supportive of that program. I personally, my daughter has been through that program. My wife is actually a school teacher here in Portsmouth. So the business community is very supportive of higher education. So we're looking to, hopefully City Council will do what we consider the right thing. It hasn't been easy, but most of you are business owners and you understand that. Sometimes it's not easy when it comes to doing business. But I appreciate the Vice Mayor coming in. It was good seeing you this weekend at Umoja, but coming in with this referendum and this initiative. So hopefully there will be support going forward for this and a new start starting in July. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very good.
you.
Council members, at this time, there are no additional speakers.
Okay. All right,
We
it's
have a
already been
motion and a
moved and second. Let's vote.
What do we do?
Yes, ma'am.
Fines.
This item has been adopted 6-1.
Very good. Thank you. Okay.
City Managers Report 14-198, adoption of an ordinance to appropriate $25,200 in the FY 2014 Grants Fund from National Recreation and Park Association for an out-of-school time program grant. Vision Principle, Neighborhood and Sense of Community, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move adoption. Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. 14-199, adoption of ordinances and resolutions to appropriate the total sum of $619,615,946 for the operation of city government for fiscal year 2014-15 for the following areas: city operating budget, $385,779,831. Capital Improvement Fund, $17,132,757. Parking Authority Capital Improvement Program Fund, $400,000. Public Utilities Capital Improvement Fund, $55 million. Portsmouth Public Schools Operating Budget, $161,303,358. Vision Principles, Change New Directions, A Robust Economy for Working Men and Women, Lifelong Learning Community, Neighborhoods and Sense of Community, Efficient Responsive Government, Quality of Life, Pride of Past. Item A, adoption of an ordinance to amend and reenact ordinance number 2013-30 to impose and levy taxes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2014 and ending June 30, 2015 on real estate, tangible personal property, privately owned pleasure boats, privately owned camping trailers and motorhomes, and machinery and tools within the city of Portsmouth, Virginia, for the purpose of raising revenue for support of governmental operations and the public free schools, and to pay principal and interest on public debt. Electronic roll call, and I have a speaker, Mr. Mark Godolny-Kietrovsky.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I neglected to state my name. I assume you have it on the record.
Yes, sir.
I'm still Mark Godolny-Kietrovsky. Adoption of an ordinance to amend and reenact ordinance number 2013-30 to impose and levy taxes for the coming fiscal year. It is this item, it is in this section of your agenda that I would consider it appropriate for you to be making modifications to fund the proposed increase for city employees and retirees that will be done farther down the agenda. Remuneration for city employees and for retirees is part of general fund expenditures, and therefore it is an appropriate place, according to the Geduldig-Yatrovsky Manual of Best Practices in Municipal Government, it is the appropriate place to find your revenues for this type of expenditures. Now, my personal favorite of the list of possible areas would be, of course, to rationalize the tax on pleasure boats, which your predecessors some decades before reduced to a ridiculously low level to make it essentially meaningless. And the theory was what we lose by cutting the tax rate will make up for in volume. Oh, yeah. There isn't enough waterfront space in Portsmouth to dock the number of boats at the 1 cent per 100 rate to make that happen. Actually, it's 1/100th of a cent per assessed value of the boat to make that up. It would be rational, to my mind, in accordance with the aforementioned manual, to make the tax on pleasure craft equivalent to the tax on motorhomes and other recreational vehicles, because that's what they are. But I know that at that dais, there is no stomach for the outcry, for facing the outcry that you would receive for doing that. So I don't think that's going to happen. I would then turn it over to you. If you don't like my suggested revenue replacement method to fund the increase that you have proposed, find one of your own. And I'll be generous. I'll give you a couple more weeks to decide on that. I would recommend that you defer item 14-199 for 2 weeks, because if you do select one of these, you would, of course, have to give the public 2 weeks' notice in a newspaper of general circulation within the area that you are contemplating that, and have a public hearing to accompany that. Now, there's a small incentive for taking me up on this deferral recommendation. You won't have to listen to me tonight 3 more times on other items down the agenda. So that probably does sweeten the pot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Speaker, actually our boat tax is 50 cents per 100, not a penny, but that's pretty reasonable. On the license fee, Mayor, and I expressed this at the work session, I do agree. I don't think that's the right way to go about what we're doing. And I've asked my colleagues, and I think most of them agreed, that we'll revisit that increase in that license fee next budget cycle. In fact, I want to make sure that's in the minutes, and we do that, because that increase should be in the operating budget. So on that point, I certainly agree with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Moody. All right, Madam Clerk.
We have no additional speakers. We're in need of a motion. Mayor, we have a motion and a second. You'll be voting electronically.
Very good.
This item is adopted 7-0. Item B, adoption of an ordinance to amend Section 35-22 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, to increase the city tax on cigarettes to 90 mils for each cigarette. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Very good.
This item is adopted 6-1. Item C, adoption of an ordinance amending Appendix A of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia to increase motor vehicle licensing fees authorized by Chapter 22 of said code. Electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers. Our first speaker is Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy. I live in the Woodbine Farm section of Portsmouth. Principles of Liberty 17. A system of checks and balances should be adopted to prevent the abuse of power. The whole spectrum of checks and balances needs to be more thoroughly studied and more vigorously enforced. James Madison, one of Virginia's founding fathers, appropriately anticipated that parchment barriers in the Constitution would not prevent unlawful seizure of power. Each department of government has the responsibility to rise up and protect its superior advantage by exercising the checks and balances which have been provided. At the same time, the people have the responsibility to keep a closer watch on their legislators and elect only those who will function within constitutional boundaries. Checks and balances were designed to protect the will of the people. Any departure from what is right, true, and just in the administration of government has done violence to the intent and desires of the people. The Founding Fathers felt that if the checks and balances as originally provided were to prove inadequate, the remedy should be a device by which the people might more directly influence the power centers of government so that decisions would be more in harmony with their wishes. James Madison said, "As the people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and it is from them that the constitutional charter under which the power of the several branches of government is derived, it seems strictly in accordance with the Republican theory to return to the same original authority whenever any one of the departments may commit intrusions on the chartered authorities of the others." End of quote. But how do the people protect themselves? There must be adequate legal machinery provided so that the legislators of the people have more direct input to project the will of the people when the officials of government are ignoring it. Madison discussed the various accountability devices which had been considered in the past to keep the departments of government within their constitutional channels. How do the people of Portsmouth protect themselves when there are no system of checks and balances in place to prevent the abuse of power like what happened on April the 7th at the City Council's work session? Power is neutral, but the person is not. So power magnifies both the person's virtue and his vices. Within the area of a person's psychological problems, he has a weak self-image, so power becomes the means to achieve self-validation. The person uses his power to bolster his weak self-image. The deception within this scheme of self-validation is that instead of basing power on proven abilities, the person bases power on his self-conceit. The possession of power has the effect of magnifying the intensity of the person's self-conceit. This way of using a power as a means of validating himself signifies that a person cannot use power wisely in situations that he finds unpleasant. Next time, legislators, consult the people before suggesting laws to be passed. Civic leagues are the neighborhood self-governing body of our city's government. Talk with them before initiating taxation without representation. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mark Godalda-Kuchowski.
Ma'am, you dropped a piece of paper.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. Councilmember Moody, I appreciate being brought up to date on that discussion. I have found myself spending more time in Virginia Beach than I'd like to admit, but it's for purposes of remunerated service, so you got to do what you got to do. Your statement, though, does raise some questions as to how the adjustment will work in a subsequent budget cycle. Does that mean that the Commissioner of Revenue will send out bills next year that includes the $7 charge, which will later be refunded, or will that be a permanent increase in the current rate of $25 per year? And then the shift, then with the budget, the funding will shift, and you can answer at the end if you have that information to convey. But I would say the best time to fix the problem is now. And I want to call to the attention of the public that has not seen my posting at Portsmouth City Watch that this fee increase is actually more comprehensive than even I had contemplated. I thought all of our family jalopies were going to be assessed, when in fact this applies to church buses, school buses, both public and private. It applies to trailers and semi-trailers that are designed for human occupancy. So it's a much broader tax than I realized before I looked at the documentation that goes with this. A lot of people will be receiving unexpected increases in their bills next May. Again, as I stated in that posting, a user fee that is really a user fee and not a hidden tax should bear some relationship to a government service that's related to the item that is being assessed the fee. So, for example, if the city of Portsmouth had a pothole repair fund, and because of the last winter, the polar vortex redux that we experienced, the number of potholes were greater than in a normal year, and we found that the fund was depleted. To me, it would be legitimate to impose a fee of this sort to aid in the repair of those potholes, or some other service directly related to vehicle operation on city streets. So I am not opposed to service fees that have a direct relationship to the service being rendered. The same thing with water and sewer fees. You know, those relate to maintaining the pipes for conveying the water to our homes and carrying the wastewater away from our homes. And when we're undergoing a major renovation in the city, I can see that there would be a need on occasion to raise those rates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilson?
Members of council, I just wanted to clear up any misperception that might have been created by Mr. Godoldi-Gutrovsky's comments. Under section 22-72 of the city code, which is part of the same section, it's just 2 sections above where the license fee is authorized. It specifically provides that and I'll just read it. The revenues derived from the collection of the license fees shall be for the purpose of providing funds for the operation of the city government, the payment of the city debt, and for other municipal purposes. So there are no restrictions on this fee that's imposed, and it is not a tax. It is a fee, and it doesn't have to be part of the taxing structure. It's specifically authorized under the code, and the purpose is entirely the proposed use is entirely consistent with the city code.
Okay, thank you.
May I speak to that briefly, sir?
Briefly.
Yes, sir. I was not making a legal argument. I was making a best practices argument.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Moody?
Yes, I'm sorry. Got to turn my mic on. Mr. Godoldi-Gutrovsky, you had mentioned how it would work if council did rescind it. First of all, council would have to roll it back, and it wouldn't go into effect until July the 1st. So there would be a lag year. To answer your question, it wouldn't be a matter of refunds, just be a matter when the new rate went into effect. So, but saying that, as I shared with my colleagues earlier during the work session, and part of my heartburn with this is usually when an elected body raises a fee or increases a fee, unfortunately, most of the time it doesn't go back the other way. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
We have no additional speakers on this item.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Item D, adoption of a resolution electing the alternate rate of 9.67% as the City of Portsmouth's Virginia Retirement System contribution rate for the biennial budget effective July 1st, 2014. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Item E, adoption of an ordinance adopting the FY 2014-15 classification and pay plan for employees of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, that includes a 3% general wage increase for full-time general employees and non-seasonal, non-temporary, part-time general employees. B, a step increase in accordance with the sworn personnel salary schedule in Section 10.B for sworn fire and police employees effective on their continuous service date following July 1st, 2014. And C, 1.5% adjustment of retirement allowances as prescribed by Sections 30-122 and 30-243 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia. For the constitutional officers and their employees, the city manager will make a recommendation to City Council regarding salary increases after the General Assembly adopts the state budget. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Mr. Mark Godoldi-Gutrovsky.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. This feels an awful lot like the Prime Minister's question hour. Here I am popping up again, but I warned you. Referring again to my best practices manual, I want to draw a comparison to what occurs in the private sector, where I spent the entirety of my work life. In the private sector, increases for employees are related to corporate profitability. A company that has no profits in a particular year typically gives extremely small, if any, increases. And that's because, unlike a governmental entity, a corporation that does not control its expenses and match them to its revenues will be out of business in relatively short order. Now, governmental entities don't typically go out of business, although the example of the great city of Detroit is instructive. It shows that it's possible. And there are other municipalities across our country that have found themselves in, if not as dire straits, still rather worrisome circumstances. So what has happened here? In the city of Portsmouth, the original budget proposed by the city manager had a 2% increase in salary for our employees and a 1% increase in payments to retirees. But the economic mainstay of the municipal budget, the real estate tax, showed no growth over the preceding year. So clearly, that money had to be provided out of surplus funds from the previous fiscal year or from dipping into our fund balance, neither of which is sustainable. I believe that in terms of drawing up your goals for the next fiscal year budget, you need to be looking carefully at matching revenue growth and growth in costs for employee services. I believe in being fair to the people who work for me. But at the same time, I believe in being fair to the taxpayers. And the property value shrinkage that began in late 2007 has not made a rebound in the city of Portsmouth, nor in many other parts of the region. And so until the city has revenues that are growing, it needs to be extremely circumspect about increasing employee salaries. Not only do you increase them one time, but this year's increase will carry forward till the end of time, which means that next year you have to find enough money to cover the new threshold of existing expenses before you look to increase them further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Members of council, we have no additional speakers.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Item F, adoption of a resolution approving the Community Planning and Development 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2014 to fiscal year 2018. City FY 2015 to FY 2019, and the 2015 Annual Action Plan for the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, and authorizing the city manager to file documents required to obtain the city's community planning and development grant entitlements. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Item G, adoption of an ordinance to appropriate $385,779,831 for the operation of city government during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2014. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Mr. Mark Godalda-Gutrovsky.
Good evening one last time, Mr. Mayor and honorable members of council, my fellow citizens. I think this is probably the appropriate spot in the budget items to come back to the allocation to Hampton Roads Transit. I don't want to rehash my arguments from before, other than to say that elimination of Saturday service on Route 47 is unacceptable to me. And to clarify my comments that I made in the original budget hearing in this regard, if that point in the manager's budget message was part of a negotiating strategy and not something that he actually intends to follow through on, and I don't want a statement on that because I don't want to compromise a negotiating strategy, then all well and good. But something to be kept in mind is whenever you disestablish trunk line service, you are impacting riders with disability as well as the transit dependent ridership in the city. Because under the rules, people are ineligible to receive handy ride services more than 3/4 of a mile from an existing bus route. So you face the likelihood of terminating services to folks who are most in need of support in this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Members of council, there are no additional speakers.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Very good.
This item is adopted 7-0. Item H, adoption of an ordinance approving the FY 2015 through 19 capital improvement program and appropriating $17,132,757 in the FY 2014-15 capital improvement fund and $400,000 in the FY 2014-15 Portsmouth Parking Authority Capital Improvement Fund, and $55 million in the FY 2014-15 Public Utilities Capital Improvement Fund. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Item I, adoption of an ordinance approving a budget in the amount of $161,303,358 for the operation of the Portsmouth Public Schools for FY 2014-15 during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2014, and appropriating said funds by classifications. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. New business 14-200, boards and commissions. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, members of council, got the Personnel Committee recommends the following reappointments and appointments to boards and commissions. Reappointments first. Towing Advisory Board, Robert Baldwin, Michael Fink, Kenneth Strickland. Wetlands Board, Brandon Griffin. Community Criminal Justice Board, Sarah Sugars. History Commission, Ollie Boone. Housing Board of Adjustments and Appeals, Anthony Anderson. Gloria Britt. Parks and Recreation Commission, Betty Ashbury. Carl Burden, Terry Hancock. Social Services Advisory Commission, Dorothy Wyron. Hampton Roads Planning Commission, Planning District Commission, Kenneth Wright, the Honorable Kenneth Wright. Hampton Roads Regional Jail, I'm sorry, left out our city manager, John Rowe. Sorry, John. Hampton Roads Regional Jail, the Honorable Curtis Edmonds, and the Honorable Marlene Randall. Appointments. Americans with Disabilities Commission, Tanya Jones. Behavioral Health Care Services Advisory Commission, Jennifer Lee. History Commission, Karen Burgess, Anthony Hines. Historic Preservation Commission, Lynn Browley, Mark Devenuti, Terry Moody, no relation to yours truly. That rhymes. And Don Richardson. Library Board, Brian Schaefer. Museum and Fine Arts Commission, Gordon Jones. Parks and Recreation Commission, Joy Coppage. And Dominique Smith. Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Felicia Page. Social Services Advisory Commission, Erica Carr and Sheila Coppage. Supplemental Retirement Board, Christopher Westerman and Corey Petty.
Second.
Okay. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 14-201, items submitted by council members.
Let me say briefly, it was mentioned earlier by one of the teachers that came up and spoke that I was at the school board meeting, the last meeting, and I want to, for several reasons. One, they presented a resolution to the Dr. Daniels family in honor of her and her memory and her service to our city and to the school board, which was well done and in great taste, and I want to applaud the school system for doing that. I see several of our school board members here tonight. And also at that meeting were several annual reports that were given, one on the TCC Portsmouth Public Schools First College Initiative and how that program started out and where it is today and how best and the most utilization that they're getting out of assisting our young people with being able to attend college in their high school years and can complete up to 30 credits of college credits before they graduate. And Ms. Rosa Wells Garris gave that report. And again, it just does your heart well to see. I think she had 3 of her students there from each school, as well as a young man that was a graduate that was over at Norfolk State University, come back and talk about what First College meant to him and how it prepared him for his experiences over at Norfolk State, and the other students that presented were just as well. But the key reason I was there was also an annual report given by the contractor that is overseeing the women and minority-owned business program that the school board initiated a couple of years ago. And I think a report is being sent to each one of the council members. It was really astounding to see how many and how much dollars that the school board has used to distribute to businesses that without that program probably would have never come to this city or to this school system to seek opportunities for subcontracting. And the persons doing the presentations, both of them spoke extremely well of that program. They had some areas where they still needed to meet their targets, but again, it's a program that's working. It makes you feel good that everyone in our society understand that Portsmouth is open for business for everyone, and I look forward to our program getting launched and hopefully catching up to where the school system is. So I want to applaud them for that and that report, and I look forward to more good things like that in the future, because it is about all of us doing our best and making sure that everybody understands that there's fair opportunities here in Portsmouth. Okay, is there anybody else? All right, Madam Clerk.
14-202, report on pending items, and we have none this evening. 14-203, non-agenda speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Randy Bailey.
Members of council, Mr. Rowe, Mr. Wilson, and of course, Ms. White, the hardest working individual up there. We just went through the oldest parade in the nation, and it's nice that the city does recognize Memorial Day, but it would be even nicer if the city would recognize the veterans. Personal property tax, real estate taxes, there are some of these things that are just not within the realm of what the other cities do for the veterans. I rent in Port Norfolk from a man who's a 100% disabled vet. But because he converted his home into an apartment, he does not get the full real estate exemption, because the city decided that it was going to fight him on this, even though it's a state law. Well, guess what? The other guy living in the house is me. I'm a 100% disabled veteran. And if he doesn't rent that out, then he's still got to pay the property tax. If you go to other cities, veterans get exemptions on their personal property taxes and the other perks that go along with it. This city doesn't do it. And I would ask that it's too late for this budget cycle, but if the veteran-friendly side of the dais over here could get together and maybe work out something for next year, that some of us could get some recognition.
Are you done, Mr. Bailey?
It would be most appreciative. I would like to say that in a few meetings ago, I missed a few meetings here because I've been in the hospital, thanks to my friendly friend, Agent Orange. And there was a joke about that, which was not appreciated. And I would like to say that there are a lot of us that, you know, we would like to work with the city. We would like to help the city. But the city, it'd be nice if the city would give us something other than a parade and a grandstand. I would like to say that this gentleman over here, being Grand Marshal, he's dedicated a lot of time to veterans. He's a veteran himself. He asked for a few of these things himself. Sergeant Major has been up here many times on different things and asked for things. And it's an ongoing thing. Keep ask, but we don't really see anything.
So it'd be nice if we're turning over a new leaf with the schools and everything else. How about we include the vets in it as well? And I would like to say that most times I don't agree with Ms. Simmons. However, she had made a very pertinent statement about the schools. And I support her 100% on that. I have met a few of these students. And when the student tells me that there are 51 states in the American continent, because he got that out of the USA Today paper and tells me that Washington, D.C. is a state, and then he tells me that he's a GED tutor, and he's a graduate at IC Narcombe High School. And when I ask him about the flag, he tells me there's 50 stars on it because we won 50 major battles. And there are 13 stripes because we've been in 13 wars. Something's wrong with the school system. All the programs and little things that pick up one or two kids, that's great. But how about we teach the rest of the kids? And I think you all understand where I'm going. If you look on the internet, the comments about this city are not good. There are city employees who get on there and tell people do not move here because of the school system, because of the crime, because of the taxes. We really need to turn over a new leaf. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I just wanted to add that Mr. Wright did bring that up several meetings ago, and that is an item that we're going to consider for next year's budget. We knew it was nothing we could do this time around, and I also mentioned that we've been in several meetings with some of our disabled vets. I was invited to one over at Post 190 about a month ago, where they compared all of the cities in this region, and I believe Portsmouth and Suffolk, Mr. Wright, were the worst of the other ones in those areas. So we plan to look at that. Thank you for your time and for your service. Mr. Chair.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mayor. You said basically what I was going to say, that Mr. Wright has brought it to our attention, and the city manager and staff are already looking at that for the next budget year. But I also want to let you know this entire council is veteran friendly from end to end. Councilman Edmonds, Councilman Moody, Mr. Rowe, myself, are all veterans, but everybody up here supports veterans, and we have that under consideration for the next budget year, and I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to do something in the very near future. So stand by.
Well, I thank you for that. I just wanted to come up here because I know that it takes several reiterations to get things to get the ball moving.
There you go.
And you got the right idea. Government service to realize that.
Thank you, sir. All right. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Jim Winley.
My name is Jim Wendley, and I reside at 443 Douglas Avenue. I have received orders from my admiral that I must be civil and dignified. I'm not sure I can manage that. I've come to address you on situations that have developed on the Hull Creek development adjacent to Port Norfolk and across the street from where I live. I need to inform you because I'm licensed as an appraiser. I am not acting as an appraiser in any real estate statements that I make. I have 45 years of experience and expertise in the field, which is part of me. But I'm not acting as an appraiser. I'm acting as a citizen with a First Amendment right to comment. And I'm also speaking on my own and not representing the Port Norfolk Civic League. We thought that we had an understanding or deal, if you will, with what we thought that Mr. Meeks owned and controlled the Hull Creek Properties LLC, and he came to our Civic League meeting several years ago and basically told us that only 11 houses would be built and the rest of the property would be developed as a wetlands mitigation bank, and the area east of the drain pipe and abutting Douglas Avenue would be developed as a conservation area. And we were satisfied with that, and we noticed just before Easter that there was activity over there, and indeed I rode by the property on my way back from church Easter Sunday, and they were feverishly working, putting in 4 lots on Detroit. And they now have sidewalks in, water meters. It looks like to me that they've thrown those lots in there. I called Mr. Meeks and talked to him, and he said that he did not authorize other members of this partnership to proceed and act and do this. And Mr. Meeks, if you feel I'm not quoting you correctly in any way, jump in and say so. I'm not sure, although I very much appreciate the fine article that Mr. Eberly did on our situation and the fine and fair coverage that he gave us. I'm not sure that he was absolutely well. Let me just say that from what I could see, and I don't know, God knows I don't know what's going on behind the scenes on this deal, and who's doing what. But from what I could see, Mr. Meeks abided by the deal that he had with us up to when this stuff started coming on, and he said he was going to do a stop work order, and work indeed did stop over there. It looks like they finished, but it stopped. We are confused and apprehensive, and we would like to know what the status of our situation is, and indeed if we have a deal or where we stand. And that tells me it's time for me to go. Yeah. So that pretty much wraps it up. I tried to call Mr. Meeks today. Unfortunately, I was unable to get in touch with him. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Clyde Toller.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, city manager, city attorney, good now, Ms. White's staff, good evening. Clyde Toller, 1029 Blair Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. I want to say thank you, Mayor, for coming by checking on me and my neighbors. Everybody was talking about how great it was Saturday morning. Was surprised to open the door and they're used to it, but good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
And the whole neighborhood thought I called you out there, but I told them that's right, so they can blame it all on me, but you were there anyway. I want to say about the parade. It was beautiful. There was more and more people are there all the time. I want to say to the citizens of Portsmouth, thank you for coming out celebrating us veterans. You lined the street beautiful. So if you're looking at Channel 48, pat yourself on the back. You behave nicely. I don't think we had any incidents from the police department. But I want to say thanks, and especially to Captain Lee Cherry and the sheriff. They had that big truck there. During the storm, you needed that big truck. See, all them people got stuck in the water. That big truck is the only thing that they got, military truck, and come down and go in water, won't get stuck and get people if you get in trouble. And that little scooter that they got, it can come inside the building and, like if I fall out in here, you can come right in that elevator, come in here and put me on and carry me right out of here. That's nice. So I'm saying good things about the city because good things are moving on, and we need to keep it this way. Now, don't mess up and have me to come up here and then have to talk ugly. But, Ms. Simmons, I have to say to you, my hat goes off to you because you are absolutely right. But I want to say this. A lot of people come up here, they will not have enough backbone and stand up and say about this money that the school board had. If Mr. Rowe hadn't caught it, they would still have it. Look, have enough backbone to say, yeah, we turned back in the money because we got caught with it. I say that you got caught. Mr. Rowe caught you. Now have enough backbone to say, we got caught. If he hadn't caught them, they would still have that money right today. And you would be sitting up here unaware of it. But you got a good city manager there, so let's back him. But anyway, I think Joe Wright did a good job. Of course, the Army, call him a dog, but he all right. He won't box me. There's one sitting up there too much chair. They call me a jarhead and all that, but that's all right. We got a name for each and every one. But I think this parade and the truck that the sheriff had out there and picked up veterans was stand on the street and put them on that truck, but he got to get it out a little bit early, so that the veteran, we could have loaded that truck up. But I was surprised when the mayor came because we go way back. I ain't gonna talk about family because his father from the same hometown I'm from, but y'all didn't know that, but he knows that and I know that. But I never put that out, but we talked about it. But Danville, Virginia is a great city. If you ever go there, you know what I mean. But anyway, I want to thank each and every one of you on this council. But look, don't raise my taxes no more. Now, you done gave the school board this money. You made this a resolution up here tonight. Okay, that's enough. Do not raise my tax. And I want that school board chairman and that school board, whoever come here and be in charge, check on them and let's drop this thing. As of tonight, don't mention this money and who did this and I got to buy papers and pencils and all that. Let's drop that and let's move on. And this parade was great, but I think Channel 13 or 3, it was beautiful what they did. But the Virginia pilot, I'm going to talk about you over there. They didn't have any. They had Chesapeake in there, but they didn't have us in there. Now, we the greatest city. We the longest parade and everything. I want to see a whole column in there about Portsmouth. Take the people that's on the street. You might sell more paper. Good night.
Good night, Sergeant Major. Thank you.
Mr. Roderick Madison.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm here on behalf of the Hampton Roads Regional Jail and wanted to announce the Mayor's Cup Blood Drive. Through the summer, each city is challenged to raise a certain amount of blood to bring a trophy back to the city and present it to the mayor. Years ago, I was able to present that trophy with the other Red Cross coordinators to Mayor Holly. This blood drive will be June 11th at 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can go on the Red Cross Blood Drive website and sign up with the sponsor code HRRJ. But it's not about the trophy, it's about raising awareness about what blood can do. We have patients cancer patients that's going through chemotherapy. Blood helps them. They have to get regular transfusions. So it's a lot of information out there that people are very leery about giving blood. It's a safe, harmless, it's free. It's the gift that keeps giving. I've been giving blood for 20 years, and I've never had an issue. It's a great feeling. It costs you nothing but maybe about 20 minutes of your time. So again, that blood drive is on Wednesday, June 11th, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's the blood mobile, so you don't have to come inside the jail. The bus will park in front of the jail and will service you as needed. I'll leave the flyers here with the sergeant at arms, so if you could put them out for me, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madison, and thank you for bringing that up and for being a donor. We actually have 6 sites that we've got set aside during the month of June for our blood drive. Over at the Department of Social Services is going to be on June the 5th. Hampton Roads Regional Jail, he just mentioned, is at June the 11th. The Police Department over at the training facility on Columbia, June 12th. Public Works over at the Operations Center on June the 13th. And the fire station on Cedar Road, June 25th. And then finally here at City Hall on June the 26th. And as Mr. Madison stated, it isn't about the trophy and the cup. It is about saving lives, and you may eventually do something good for someone that you don't know or you may know. It doesn't matter. It's about giving back, and during the summer months is some of their worst times, and the reason why they run these blood drives. We like winning. I think we've come in second place for the last 2 or 3 years. Hampton has won. I think last year there was a tie between Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, but so we're hoping we can bring the cup home, and as Mr. Madison said, hoping everyone will show up on one of those dates at one of those sites and give. Madam Clerk?
Yes. Our next speaker is Ms. Ruth Okoye.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. Ruth Okoye, and I live in the River Point subdivision. And I have to say that I had prepared comments, and very, very grateful to you all that my prepared comments were no longer necessary. So I want to talk from the heart, okay? We've learned a lot of lessons in this last 6 to 8 weeks, and going through this whole budgeting process. One thing I think that we've all learned is that our children are important to us. The city's children are important. And while we still have a number of issues to work out with the management of funds and the repair status of our buildings, we have all agreed that educating our children is important to the growth and improvement of our city. And I think that's important for us to recognize. There are some misconceptions that we have also looked at, and we have addressed those. The perception that the school board is unwilling to work with the city council and vice versa. It would seem that that is untrue. And we've seen proof of that tonight. And I'm very, very happy that we've seen that proof as well. And so moving forward, looking forward, we want to remember all the citizens. We need to make sure that, both the city council and the school board stay accountable to one another, and that they continue to ensure the cooperation both ways. And as elected officials, as our elected officials, both in the city council and in the school board, we would charge you guys to just, keep it up. Keep up the good work. You've done a good thing here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Karen Streeter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am in the same boat that Dr. Ruth is. I came in here with some things I was going to say, and you surprised me, which is great. So I, too, will speak to you from the heart. I thank you for the decision that you made here tonight. I appreciate, while I don't agree with Ms. Simmons' comments, I think that accountability is being built into the system as we move forward. I think the negotiations that have gone on over the last few weeks are hypercritical for us to move forward. When we talk about the public image of this city, first and foremost, it's us first that have to believe in what we are and who we are. Because it's not going to matter what anybody says outside of this city or in any media outlet. The most critical thing is that we actually believe that we can make all of this happen. We are the ones that have to do it. I ask you, as you have passed this budget, to think about some things as we move forward. One of the things that I want you to think about is the capital improvement plan. When I was here the last time, what we talked about was that over a 5-year period, the school division had asked for $32 million, and the capital improvement plan, as it stands, will provide $13 million over 5 years, $29 million difference. And what I say to you is the value of the assets of those schools far surpasses the amount of money that you're putting into them over the next 5 years. Mr. Moody and City Manager Rowe talked to us about a new system that was going to be put into place that would capture needs and also prioritize them. And that deferred maintenance is something that's a challenge for every city, and I agree with you, it is. However, in this particular situation, when you then turn around and talk to us about the shape that the city's buildings are in, that says to me that the priority is always going to be put first on the city buildings that need to be fixed, because the school division had spent the last 10 years trying to build their infrastructure. And I ask you to look at that because the reason that some of that happened was because the cycle from before where the buildings were not kept up. Don't let that happen again. So if the system just looks at it in terms of the buildings as a whole in the city, then the school buildings are not going to fit into that capital improvement plan where they should. The second thing is the concept of shared services. Ms. Swindell spoke of it, City Manager Rowe. They talked, as they mentioned, the fact that they were learning about the school division budget, and they had brought something forth in terms of what they thought we should have for money. They mentioned economies of scale and shared services. And in this current economic condition, organizations are being driven to become more efficient, while at the same time improving their levels of quality and service. And so in many instances, people are getting together for shared services. The thing that I want you to think about and to remember is what shared services mean. When you talk to people who deal in that, they tell you that the number one thing should not always be just driven by cost. It needs to be driven by efficiencies and qualities. And so what you have to look at is who's coming to the table. They tell you you need to bring the appropriate stakeholders to the table, and you need to create a service level agreement. And I think while the concept of shared services is a good one, I think part of what has to happen is that you need to go through this next year and talk about those things and plan for them and bring the stakeholders to the table before you decide that the money needs to be saved that way. The other thing is self-insurance. And while self-insurance may be something that could be a possibility for the school division, you have to remember when you self-insure that you have to have a pot of money or your cash flow in advance in order to be able to cover any large insurance outlays that you have to make. Again, I say to you, with the budget that we're given, we would need to have that be part of the consideration, or being able to self-insure in terms of health insurance would be difficult for us. Those are the things that I ask because I know during the year this year, the discussions are going to be ongoing and the accountability is built into where the money is going categorically and how it's going to be spent. And I think that was a brilliant move on your part tonight. And I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good.
Ms. Antoinette Franklin.
Good evening again to City Council members. Like I said, my name is Antoinette Franklin. I'm a citizen of Portsmouth. And again, I want to thank the Behavioral Health Care Services for the services they have rendered to me. Without their services, again, I would not be where I am today. Without the services of the Portsmouth Drug Court, thanking the Honorable Johnny E. Morrison for allowing me to be in that program, to be a productive citizen of Portsmouth. With the things I've learned, and I've said this once before, I would not be a mother. I have grandchildren. I have great-grandchildren. I wouldn't be where I am today. I often go out and promote those programs I just wish it wasn't a thing where you had to be court ordered to go to. I'm in the process of trying to find treatment for a grandson of mine that I found out that was into addiction. But because of services from Behavioral Health Care Service, I can direct him that way. And I'm so grateful to the city of Portsmouth for all that they have done for me. The officer that arrested me, I thanked him. I might have been still out there in those streets. And I'm so grateful for the things I've learned. Now I can go and come as I please. I've paid my dues. Only thing I would like is to have my rights restored so that when things come up in the city of Portsmouth, I am able to vote. The last time I voted, and it's a shame, when Wilder ran for governor, and I was very young then. I'm getting older now. It's things that decisions need to be made on, and I need to learn how to vote. And I'm hoping one of you city council members can help me with that. You help with a lot of funding for this and that. This doesn't cost anything that I know of. So with that being said, I'm grateful. And I'm hoping that one of you will be able to get in touch with me and show me what it's like to vote again. I brought one of my friends that's a product of this Behavioral Health Care Services. And I said, the only way people learn what needs to be done is if you get out and run your mouth like I do. I want to be a person to run my mouth for those that are scared to talk. I'm not scared to talk anymore. When I was running from police and different things like that, I would be scared. I'm not scared anymore. I want to get the word out there that there are services that people can use, and a lot of times they don't cost any money. I want to be an advocate for these programs. Your Honorable Mayor was a supporter of the program that I came out of. Like I told y'all once before, the last time I've been up here, the first time I've been in this part of the building, I graduated from the Portsmouth Drug Court program. Now, I give my time every week and let people see that if I can do it, anybody else can, and with that, I end.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me just say, you might want to check, the current governor that we have is very adamant about changing and doing some things in the way of restoration of rights, and especially for things like drug use and things of that nature. And he's been very aggressive so far since he's been in the office. And I think if you check again, if that's the only thing that's hindering you, you may be on a real collision course of being able to have this decision of whether or not you want to vote for one of us up here in these chairs.
Yeah.
But and that's going to be a tough call. But yeah, please check into that because he has.
Well, how do I get in touch with that person?
Yeah, the governor, right, and your local legislators. You can either talk to Delegate Matthew James. We have to have workshops here, and there's several. The AKAs, the Deltas, all of them have workshops here. I'd encourage you to contact some of those people, and they're actually one of them's back there in behavioral health services that could probably help and guide you in that direction.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Thank
right,
you,
God
ma'am,
bless.
very much. Mr. Cherry.
Thank you, Mayor. You don't have to come back, Ms. Franklin, but I know you still go by and participate in the drug court. So next time you're by there, just talk to my wife. She's been a part of some of those workshops that the mayor spoke about with the restoration of rights, and she knows all the contacts. And we're glad to help you, and I hope we can get you restored before November. Thank you.
Ms. Brenda Harris.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
My name is Brenda Harris, and I'm from Portsmouth. I stay in Prentice Park. I'm at Craddock. Okay, I'm here on behalf of the MEF program. Okay, and I have a petition here where everybody signed, and they're going up on the fee, which a lot of us cannot afford. Okay, they went up 3 times. One time it It was 20. It was 20 when I first started. Then it went up to 25. Then it went up to 35. And then they're trying to go up to 70. And that's quite. You know, that's a lot for the ones that's down there. Even with me, with the job that I have, you know, and since I stopped using, I got on the methadone program. I've been doing very good, you know. And I've been at my job now for 12 years. I haven't been on the program for 12 years, but I've been on my job for 12 with their help. And then I got on the program. I got my own place. I got a car. You know, I go to Tidewater. I'm getting ready to graduate. You know, and with them going up on the price, a lot of us will fall and be going back out on the street because we can't afford it. People that got insurance, they're paying more plus for counselor fee. Some paying $98 for counselor fee. Each time they see a counselor, they got to pay $98. Me, unfortunately, I don't have to pay that much, but it's enough. Of course, some people that come down there, I get, when my money's come from tips, without tips, and you know how some of y'all are, not tipping, you know. You all right?
I'm a good tipper, right?
Yes,
That's
you
right.
are.
Yeah, that's right.
But this son don't tip, and you know, without that, I wouldn't have got this far. I think some people, you know. But I understand because hardship is hard. But I'm doing pretty good, and I got to thank the MEF program. But if y'all can help us to stop them from going up $70, please, because there will be a lot to go back out on the street, and well, I don't think we want that. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Appreciate you coming. And as far as the rate structure and how that's all determined, that's nothing we can handle here. Mr. Manager, is there somebody that can?
Not tonight, and I'm going to ask Brandon and Gracie to speak with her when she sits down.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night. Okay.
Members of council, there's no additional business to come before you this evening.
Thank you. We adjourn.